Hey everybody, I'm Bob Bakert with Jazz Guitar today, and I'm being joined by Davy Mooney. Um, Davy is well known to all you folks out there. He's a contributor. He is, I was reading what is your actual title out at school?
Well, I'm assistant professor, but if all goes well, tomorrow I'll be associate professor, which means I'm supposed to get tenure in the next couple days. So,
Oh,
assistant slash associate professor of jazz studies guitar. That's what it said on my hire letter 6 years ago. Anyway, so I
well,
think
I,
it's what.
I was I was reading your bio
Mhm.
from school, and I wanted to make sure I got it right. So I think it's pretty cool. The University of North Texas College of
Mhm.
Music, jazz guitarist from New Orleans who records for Sunnyside Records, which is why we're here today.
Yes.
Man, you got a new project.
Yeah, and it's going to be released on June 9th. I don't know when folks are going to be seeing this video, but I got the CDs and it's available for pre-order now. It's called Way Back.
Right.
And
So
yeah, it's
so I checked it out.
great.
Yeah. I actually, I do my homework, kind of sort of. Um, I have some thoughts about it. First of all, I'm really glad it's not that you do this, but I'm always glad, and it's really been rare lately that I have to even say anything. It's definitely not SOS. Um, you know, it is an intelligent record.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah,
think a lot about these things, so
yeah. It's
no.
really it's definitely. I wrote made some notes to myself. It's a
Mhm.
thinking person's listen. Now you don't have to be a thinking person. You don't have to sit there like with the headphones on and listen to everything that's going on because it makes a really nice ambience as well. In
Mhm.
fact, one of the cuts, I think it was La Benja. Am I saying that
Oh, La
wrong?
Bruja.
La Bruja.
Yeah.
One of the cuts, I can see, like, do you remember the scene with um Brad Pitt and Angelina Jolie in the Mexican restaurant when he's getting drunk and all of that?
I don't know if I saw that movie, so
Okay.
I'll have to check that out.
Anyway,
It's
it's called,
it's a Mexican folk song from
yeah, the
Jalapa,
Smiths. Yeah.
Veracruz.
Uh Mr. and Mrs. Smith, something. I don't know what the name of that thing was. But anyway, I can see that like a movie, like as a movie background. I mean, I wouldn't say like a movie score because those are
Mhm.
different. Those go
Yeah, yeah.
with, but I can definitely see that being used in music, that music being used in, 007 movies because they always go down there. I just it because it's fresh, but it's definitely got the vibe, it's definitely got the sound.
Hopefully that'll happen and I'll make some money, Bob.
Yeah, well, I'm hoping that for you too. Anyway, I'm also excuse me. I'm also really impressed with your band,
They're
and
great.
and they like you.
Yeah, they seem to. I've been working with them for a really long time. That's one of the meanings of the way back title.
Yeah.
Because my wife is from Brazil, and so I've been going to Brazil since 2001,
Hmm.
like every year at least once. And I didn't start playing gigs there until around 2011, though 2010.
Right.
And the musicians that I met then and started playing with, pretty much I've been working with until now. And we finally were able to do a record. But they've been playing my music for a long time. And of course, John Ellis, I've known since I was when I was in high school because he was at the University of New Orleans when I was still in high school, and we've done
Yeah.
like 6 or 7 records together. It's been a while, so we go way back.
Well, your compositions are not for the faint of heart as a musician to play with you. You don't say this one's an E flat, let's go. You know,
Yeah,
uh
yeah, they're
it's
very eclectic, I would say. A lot of different styles and that was kind of a I was encouraged to do that in the Monk when I studied in the Monk Institute, particularly. Terence Blanchard used to enable me to do these crazy like blends of different styles. And I think at first, this would have been like over 10 years ago. it could sometimes be a mess. But I think over, gosh, it's 15 years ago. Over time, I've sort of figured out how to mix things together in a way that at least appeals to me, you know. But for musicians playing it, it's not just like one thing. I mean, we do swing out, but we don't swing out all the time. And it's kind of Brazilian, but it's not all Brazilian. And there's some country music on there. There's like I sing a song. So there's a lot of different things. But I think those guys are used to it at this point.
Well, there's a lot of what I'm going to call like classical ensemble type stuff going on. I mean, you have to be attached to the meter. You have to be attached to what's on the written page.
Hmm.
You know, there's a lot of ensemble playing where the notes account. You've got I don't know if I'd call it counterpoint, but it's counter something or other.
There's some counterpoint in there, especially that
Yeah,
first song, first tune, the ancient song.
I love that tune. Yeah,
Yeah, there's a spot, and I did that on the last record on Kid Flash. I always try to get away with a little bit of, you know, three-part things going on, and it's
right.
definitely contrapuntal in the sense that I think about, well, this note, I can't have these notes be the same because then the independence of the lines will disappear, and that's stuff I worked on with Terence Blanchard back in Monk Institute.
Well, particularly in the bass.
Yeah.
The bass on that track is,
Hmm.
you know, really creative, and his
Hmm.
ability to play it
Hmm.
is freaking spot on. I
Yeah,
mean,
that
it's
whole song was the idea of I was riding my bike with my kids, and I got this thing stuck in my head that's just basically like da 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 da. And I'm like, what is this thing that won't get out of my head? And I don't know if I heard it somewhere. And then the exercise of writing that was seeing how far I could take that without it getting monotonous. And so really the whole song is mostly that idea. And it also reminds me a little bit of like something Milton Nascimento might sing, because he's like one of my favorite Brazilian musicians. I named my son after him. And that's kind of like, oh, la, 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 la. He's got kind of melodies like that sometimes.
mhm.
But yeah, it was the counterpoint thing was a big part of it to try to, because that was in one register, and then you got to just the idea of if you want things to actually kind of appear musically and stand out, you have to consider the range, and if this
Right.
note, the melody has to be different notes than that, or it'll all kind of blend together. There's a lot of things to consider.
There's some adventurous harmony in there as well. Harmony against the melody. Um,
Yeah,
you know, we go,
that's the fun part for me.
yeah, what was that? You know, what? Huh? He's playing what
Yeah, I
against
try
the
to
what?
go as far as I can. Sometimes I take it a
You
little too far, and I
you
have to
got
go
a
back.
couple of notes that yeah, they're gonna stretch your average Western ear. I'm gonna tell you that. But I
Yep,
mean, but
good.
what Sting calls it, because we Dominic Miller's on our cover right now.
I love
What's
Dominic Miller, one of my
Yeah,
favorite guitar players.
well, he's a Brazilian guy. You know, he's South American.
South America, right? Yeah, he grew
Yeah,
up Argentina or somewhere like that.
Argentina. Yeah, and you know who else spends a lot of time down there is Wayne Krantz.
That's what I've heard. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Anyway, but Sting was talking to him, or I saw something, and they call it surprises.
Yep, of
You know,
course.
are there surprise? You know, Sting was talking about, I want to hear surprises in the minute. If Sting says that, I'm sorry, I'm a big Sting guy. You know, I'm a big
Yeah, I love Sting.
fan of Sting. And if he says, I'm going, well, yeah, I mean that's exactly what you're looking for. You're looking for, you know, you don't want to get smashed with them, of course, because then all of a
Mhm.
sudden it becomes cacophonous. How's that
Yeah,
for a word?
and it's not even surprising if it's all dissonance. You're like,
No,
"Oh, it's a bunch of
yeah,
dissonance."
then it's not. But when all of a sudden you go, Davy, what are you doing
Mhm.
there? Oh, really? You're going there? All right, we'll take that. Why not? And then the resolves are always really cool. And you're playing with a lot of stuff. You're playing with the rhythm.
Uh-huh.
You know, you're playing with definitely with the harmony for sure. And then running those melodies up against it. And then all of a sudden the guitar comes in and it starts out kind of, you know, pretty tame.
Uh-huh.
And you know, and then it just keeps getting a little bit more adventurous and more adventurous, more adventurous until you hear a couple of bebop lines and
Yeah.
what's that doing there? You know? But all in a very, very cool way. So I again I go back to my statement. It's a thinking person's listen, but they don't have to be. And
Hmm.
the intelligence, my overall word that came to my mind when I listened to the whole thing is just intelligence. So
Awesome.
congratulations on that.
Thanks, man.
Um, you want to let I've talked a lot. I'm kind
Hmm.
of giving you a verbal review of what I saw.
Yeah.
Um, how do you feel about the record?
I mean, I really like this one. Like I said, and I think you alluded to, I always when I do these projects, I get these crazy ideas and I write them down and I hear it in my head and I always think, okay, is this gonna work? And over time, I have a better sense of what's gonna work and what's not gonna work with the all those things you're talking about, the dissonance and the blending of styles. And then there's like, I'm my guitar style when it comes to the guitar solo, it's going to sound like me, which is, a mixture of, Steve Mazikowski and Joe Pass. And that's an element that's in there that maybe you're not expecting when you hear the context of the tune. But I think, the stuff, the way I've been thinking about it, the best stuff on this record, I think is the best stuff I've done in the sense that whenever I do an album, I have the idea in my head of what I want it to sound like. And then you get in the studio with like a day or 2 days and you do the best you can. And every record, I feel like there's a few tunes, hopefully, 3 or 4 that are like, okay, I got it. And the rest, you're like, okay, I got close, and it's pretty good. And here we go. So this one, like, there's a few songs. Like, I really like the Ancient Song.
I love
Uh,
that one, Jim. That was one of my
and
favorites.
then there's a tune called Wintry Mix that I was really happy with, and that I kind of brought in some, because I live in Texas,
Right.
and I try to be, I'm from New Orleans. I spent a lot of time in Brazil. My wife's from there. I spent time in New York. So I have this modern jazz, New Orleans, Brazilian thing, but it's Texas. So I put some country elements in there in the sense of like there's a train beat and I mixed in the dissonance. I feel like actually that one I got away with some dissonance that I probably shouldn't have gotten away with. But
Well,
somehow,
that one is the most adventurous of all of them, I think.
yeah, I
Uh,
think so. And it's very almost like cinematic. And there's
yeah.
I'm collaborating with someone at the University of Texas at Dallas, and she's doing an animation for it that I'm really excited about. We're hopefully going to have that ready for the release
Well,
date.
it is a
It's a visual
very
component.
it is a. I'm sorry, I've stepped over. What did
No,
you
I'm
say?
just saying there's a visual. When I do that, when I'm seeing visuals in my head.
Well, yeah, it's got it again. It's very the record is for lack of a better word is very cinematic. You can
Hmm.
it does bring up scenes that you. And I mean, it's going to be different for everybody, of course, but it
Hmm.
does bring up scenes. And then you did this really weird ass thing that I've never heard before. You don't have to apologize for it because I think it's really cool. But God, you talk about what the hell is that? I had to look it up. You have
Which
a
song?
you have a bass clarinet all
Oh,
over
of
this
course.
record.
Oh, yeah, that's John Ellis. He has one of the
Yeah,
most beautiful bass clarinet sounds, and I always try to take advantage of that.
good God. That's really freaking cool. I guess maybe I'm just not hip to it, but the way that's being used in this recording is pretty awesome. I really
Yeah, I
like
use it
it.
a lot to double bass parts and have
Yeah,
that timbre. Like there's a song called Bachchian that comes from, here at UNC we work out of the sonatas and partitas, the violin pieces.
right.
Fred Hamilton, got me into those when I was a student here. And there was this little passage in, I think it's in the B minor partita that I just thought was such a like modern jazz sounding little figure that
Right.
I took that and it kind of the song is almost like kind of fusion or like prog rock. I don't know what it is, but then it's got Brazilian elements. And in that one, I really like had the bass clarinet double
Yeah.
almost everything in the bass.
Well, I wrote down fun with time,
Hmm. Yeah,
you
that
know.
song has some little tricky things in there. That's why it's kind of prog rocky. I mean, when we solo, yeah, even on the solo, it's mostly threes and twos, but I mix them up in a weird way. It's not always regular.
Yeah. I guess that's what I wrote. Fun with time,
Hmm.
fine ensemble, and then some of the harmonies, like you said, you got away with some stuff. I don't know if
Hmm.
you got away with it. I would say that you pushed the edge. I
Yeah,
wouldn't.
I mean, it needs dissonance for me. I need that. I need it to get dissonant and then come back.
Yeah.
Like, if
Well,
there's not enough, because you can really like on the ancient song too, it can get a little bit too sort of pastel color and too diatonic. Because I come from rock music, obviously, and pop music, folk music.
yeah.
If a song is just like 1 6 2 5 or those typical progressions that I love the sound of in jazz and in rock,
Yeah.
but I need that other chord that's like the unpredictable one to get in there too, like a sharp 9 chord or something it doesn't have to be, even be jazzy necessarily, although often it's that or something chromatic, and then I come back again because I don't want to leave it out there too long.
Yeah, I mean 1625 is that's for those of you who don't know, that's like 50s rock music.
Yeah. Or like 1 5 6 4, right? Is that like
Yeah.
on the bridge and all those? Like I love those progressions,
Yeah, sure, they're
uh,
great.
and they evoke a certain emotion in people, I think, especially of my generation, because we grew up hearing that. And I like to mix those kinds of things in with more jazz progressions, and then
Yeah,
also
you
like
you
throw in
hear
a weird
that.
chord.
Well, that's what I was just gonna say. You hear that, and then all of a sudden there's this other thing that happens. You go,
Hmm.
oh. But it's never boring. I don't want to even begin to talk about that.
Hmm.
It's got a lot of I'm trying to I want to try to come up with something that doesn't sound like a cliche.
Hmm.
Um, it's a fun listen for sure, and it'll catch your ear. You can sit and listen to it, like really pay attention, or you can just have it on in the background and you still will enjoy the record. That's kind of a cool trait.
Yeah, I mean, I think we got a really good sonic thing going on too. We recorded at a studio called Gargolungia outside of
Yeah,
São Paulo, Campinas, and then it was mixed and mastered by Misha Kashkashvili at Esplanade Studio in New Orleans, and he does a lot of great records, and he does all kind of like film stuff
yeah.
and pop
Well,
music as well.
yeah, that's.
He's
I
got
was gonna
Grammys.
say, yeah, it's really well done, and you can hear that because I would say that it's um it's blended really really well, and everything's where it should be. Everything's separated the way it should be. You can hear all the
Mhm.
instruments in their complete timbre. There's no one thing stepping on it. It's a really it's a really good record. You should be
And yeah,
very
I think
proud.
about that stuff a lot too. Over the years, we would always like when I first started making albums, they wouldn't sound sonically the way I wanted to, and so
Right.
obsessing like, what? How come this record sounds like this? And a lot of the time, it's the playing, which is it's like you have these people that sounds really good, but also just I pay a lot of attention to when we're mixing and mastering and when we're recording, just making sure that there's a clarity and that every instrument has its little space in the mix sonically, and that's composition too. You can there's so many ways you can mess that up, so that the final product sounds kind of muddy. And we stretched it a little with the ancient song because the timbres of some of those parts, but I tried to spread it out so that it's not all in a register where it's going to be too muddy or too shrill. And the
that
players are so great too, so that helped.
that kind of recording has been around for like ever when it comes to rock music, and
Hmm.
pop music and all that, because they pay a lot of attention to you know the sonic, to the sonic space and the band passes of each instrument. And sometimes they'll limit the band passes of each instrument so much that without the rest of the band you wouldn't really recognize the instrument as something that sounds good, but
Hmm.
in its context of the, it's all there. But in jazz, um
We don't have
it's
time.
well, you don't have time, you don't have the money for
Money.
sure, but the instruments themselves are so diverse in their timbre for the
Hmm.
most part in the classical stuff, like bass, piano, drums, guitar, horn. I mean,
Hmm.
nothing's. I mean, the guitar and the piano are the only two things that really can. And if you got a left hand, you got a guy hitting his left hand on the piano, that can get kind of messed, but they don't.
Yeah.
So all of that creating space for the instruments, is kind of just done. It just happens.
Hmm.
But with guys like you who are coming along and who are used to this whole other thing,
Hmm.
creating new music that actually uses the instruments across their bandpass more, then all of a sudden, yeah, you're right. You got to be conscious of that.
Yeah,
And
it's a
you
lot to think about.
and you did a great job. But you did a great job. It's a really good record. It's a fun listen. So we're here with Davy Mooney. He's got a new record out, and it's called,
Way back
and it looks like,
that.
that's a good picture, man.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a
I got,
good.
Sunnyside guy named Chris Drucker. He does the designs for Sunnyside Records, and he just does a great job. He's
Well,
got
no, that looks great. It's a great record. It's a hell of a lot of work went into it. A lot of cool guitar stuff for the guys that are, like, well, is there any guitar? Yeah, the guitar stuff is really, really cool. The composition's great. All of the musicians on the record are great. They have total respect for you because you can tell in the precision of the way everything is done, that everybody's really, it's not careful by any stretch of imagination, but there's a respect there for the music and compositions, which is great. I don't know how to give it any more than like the two thumbs up thing, man. I really want you to do well with it.
Yeah, exactly. And I just let me give a quick shout out to the musicians because Felipe Silveira is a great pianist, the Brazilian musicians,
Mhm.
Thiago Alves on bass, Paulinho Vicente on drums, and of course John Ellis on tenor and bass clarinet. I couldn't do these things without them. So just a shout out. Great players.
That's what it is. So Bob Bakert with Davy Mooney, man, we appreciate you so much. By the way, Davy, do you teach privately at all? I mean, can people still get a hold of you via?
Yeah, I mean, I do some Zoom lessons. I mean, during the year it gets a little busy around
Yeah,
here, but I do what I can outside of school,
right,
especially with prospective students. UNT students, I
right.
definitely do
Are
that.
you going to be trying to do some dates with this thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, we're going down to Brazil, and I'm going over to Argentina. I have a couple gigs in Argentina with a great guitarist there named Herman Damianic. Is that how you say his last name? I haven't said his last name ever. I write it, and I actually have never said it, so I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Herman, if I mess up your name. But yeah, we have some dates. Mexico. I think I might be going to South Korea with the band. That looks like it's in the works. And
Wow.
then they're trying to come. The Brazilian cats are possibly going to come to the States, and we'll do some dates like in Texas and maybe New York. So I'm trying to, that's part of like the way back, the other meaning of the title, the way back to when we used to be able to travel and collaborate with other musicians. Because part of the fun, I mean, a lot of the fun for me, I mean, I love playing music, but I can do that in my office. I like going to traveling
Right.
internationally, nationally, whatever, and just meeting different people and playing music. And so
Well, I
that's
will tell you
kind of
this.
fun for me.
Dominic Miller is, multinational,
Hmm.
Jonathan Butler, who South African, he's coming up. I talked with McLaughlin a couple days ago.
Yeah.
Obviously, he's all over the place. I mean, his music is from India blended with with the West. And he lives
Hmm.
in Monaco. He's from England. I mean, I mean, it seems like everybody that I'm talking to these days, there's a real strong movement of I hate to say world music because that's a whole other thing, but there's a globalization thing coming together where all these different cultures are coming together and making some really cool music, which I think is great. And the two guys that I play with every Thursday night, just in the jam session,
Hmm.
one is from the Cameroon and one is from the Ivory Coast, and then we got a guy from Canada,
Hmm.
and a guy from Michigan, which is a whole other
Yeah.
world, So I was gonna say it's two Africans and three pasty Northerners. It's
Yeah.
really, and the music is really fun. I mean, it's really really fun. Well, anyway, man, Bob Bakert with Davy Mooney. The new record is coming out June the 9th, right?
9th, yes. And
Yeah.
it's available for pre-order now. And yeah, June 9th. And we'll be out there doing gigs and I'll be talking about it. I'll probably do a few videos on some tunes, talking about the nitty-gritty of what actually happened. Hopefully people will dig that. And yeah, check it out.
Thanks, buddy. Thanks a lot,
Great.
man. See you later, Davy. Bye bye, everybody.